welcome back to WCS Winter America's Finals. I'm Zombergub casting with In Control. How you doing? How you feeling?
It's good to be okay.
It is good to be okay.
It's okay to be okay.
It's okay to
Is
be
today
okay.
the best day I've ever had? No, not yet, but it's just started.
You don't have to always be great.
That's
You
right.
can just be okay. That's the lesson learned here in the Americas, apparently.
That's right.
So, we're going to be getting into our next match, which I'm actually quite excited for. I think this could be a really great TvZ,
Are you actually excited?
Yes, I am. I looked up their scores previously. It was a close match in the round robin, and they've had some back and forth behind that. So, Cham versus MaSa, TvZ. Do you have any predictions for this one?
Oh, man. My prediction is that Cham will take this one as well.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
I think MaSa's got the Scarlet, elixir, the blade that can kill Scarlet, but not. I don't see him. Cham's used to it. He's used to the dirty. 2 racks him. Go for it. He's just gonna make lings. He's ready for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And the fact that he lost to 2 racks in the round robin against
Past
MaSa.
it.
Past it.
Listen. How do we improve?
Doesn't matter anymore.
What did Bruce Wayne's butler teach him?
To do a bunch of push-ups? I don't remember.
Probably
so.
that as well. But
Yeah,
also
okay.
that if once we fall, we can learn to pick ourselves up.
Oh, that one. Yes,
That's
I
the
do
one.
recall that one.
Yeah.
I watched the Batman movies.
Of course.
Let's take another look at that bracket. Just a refresher in case you forgot what we just saw, or you're eager to learn what we're about to see after this one. Of course, kind of King of the Hill-ish, right? We just saw Cham beat Estrella 3-1, now facing MaSa. If he were to win again, he'd face Time, so on and so forth, until you face the big boss that is Scarlet after our nice little FFA that we're having later on in the day. So all these matches could be super, super cool, but I'm excited to see some Terran. As we all know, Terran bias confirmed. Although I think Nate actually stole that title from me.
Yeah,
I think
well,
my
a long
subtitle is
time
no
ago.
longer that. Darn it.
Salt of the earth, that one.
I didn't even see what mine was, actually. I was too
What
nervous
is-
about being in the hosting position.
Yeah, pull up her. What do we say about Zombie Grub? Her nameplate, maybe? Does
Can you bring
production
that
have
up
that
again?
power? There it is.
Oh, right, yes.
Wow.
We'll go with that one, sure. Yep. Official caster since 2011. I wasn't casting like Clan Wars or anything back then.
So everyone makes a joke about theirs. Mine's nice now. Former pro player, cool.
Right.
It used to just be literally former player, and I was like, wow,
Yeah,
that's all of us, I guess. Yeah,
that is technically
I have
everyone.
played StarCraft. Thank you.
You
Yeah,
too could be up on this stage.
That's right.
The title, former player. Even if you only played StarCraft back Wings of Liberty.
You just gotta play it okay.
You're all right. You're all
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Actually, that's a legitimate question. I'm curious. Were the ranks as like A through D or whatever it was back then as well? Were you proud to be the A+ player from America?
No, there was
Oh,
no
okay.
A+ player. Idra in his prime back in Brood War got to A rank, I think. So this is a different ladder, a one we will not name here on this broadcast, but that was kind of the official ladder for how good you were. It's funny, years later, though, everyone's like, oh, yeah, I think I hit, what was it, A- maybe it was? And I'm like, no, you didn't. You did not. And they're like, yeah, no, totally. Me and all my 6 brothers, we all did. And I think my sister did, too. I'm like, no, none of you did. Nobody. It was really hard to do. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing.
Whatever
No
a
one's
lot of
really
people
going to check that, So it's kind of hard to do. But anyways, we know these 2 players are amazing. So that's the super cool segue. Check out some clips from previous matches. Look at that. Look at that. Look
This
at
is
that
the
nice
clip we
blue
went with.
command center. Isn't it amazing? Yes, it is. Of course, MaSa, known as, he's been kind of on the front of the NA scene for a very long time, along with Neeb and Scarlet, sometimes beating them.
Yeah.
Seeming to have some type of magic spell against Scarlet in some of those local tournaments, but really well known for his micro, his aggression, what we kind of know for these upstart young Terrans, and hasn't ever really lost that. He's also kind of known for perhaps being able to just kind of show up and dominate when he
Yes.
feels like it, like either regardless of if he was practicing a ton or not. He's gotten all this way, and I know he's been putting in more hours. Of course, you look at the broadcast a couple weeks ago, maybe we're talking about, he's been practicing that much. Well, obviously so, and he's been doing very, very well, so now he's simply waiting to face his opponents, of which he actually, he had to face maybe a Protoss, maybe a Zerg. He couldn't tell, and that's part of the trickery as opposed to this specific style. Do you like this style so far, tournament?
I like that they're changing it. I think that's really fun and exciting. If it was just another finals, just another round of 8 or 16 or 12 or whatever it
Yeah.
is, and it's a little less interesting for me. This is a very different format. I think it certainly emphasizes the previous weekend where the seedings are entirely determined. So it's multiple weekends impacting, and I think that's pretty cool. I think it's brutal is the funny thing, right? So Estrella just got eliminated. Well, he's going to be hanging out here for a couple days. The good news for him is he's a Californian kid, so it's not that big of a deal. But some of these guys, the European broadcast tomorrow, if you lose that first 1 or 2 matches, you came a long ways, lost 1 best-of-5, and that's it. So it's brutal, but it is what it is.
It is brutal, and you don't get the little bit extra preparation that can sometimes come along with only, having that round of 8s and being like, you know what, I'm very confident against this guy. I don't know about the next guy. I mean, that's the entire day for them. No prep really, except for the first 2, which Cham obviously showed great prep against Estrella, but now it's a different beast, someone who he lost to in the round robin, but it was a 2-1, so I'm thinking he's feeling like he can bring that back. Cham does seem to be on the up and up, right? He had that performance, I believe it was 2 years ago, where he almost made it to BlizzCon. He was so shockingly close. Maybe not like the greatest 2018, but he's back here in the round of, well, I guess 6, right? Such a weird thing to say, for the WCS Winter Finals. And I'm sure he's very excited to get into this ZVT. We are starting this best of 5 on Kings Cove, MaSa versus Cham. We have, I don't know. I'm thinking a pretty good series, but if MaSa also, does 3 2-racks in a row, well, so be it. That's, that's sometimes MaSa wants to do that.
You gotta do what you gotta do to win. MaSa, I agree with everything you were talking about earlier too, in terms of like, did he practice or what kind of player shows up? But his performance against Scarlet in that whole round, that round robin round, I suppose, he actually looked to be more crisp than I'm used to seeing him play. His micro's always been on point, like you said. But even his macro was amazing. His build, his concept of how he wanted to get into that and kind of win was all very top tier. So if he brings that kind of stuff here, it's going to be a tough match. As the game is, we're getting into it.
Yes, we are. We're spawning in the top left to start things off in this best of 5. It is the red Zerg. For Chivo, it's Cham.
His opponent, the lower right-hand side, now making an appearance. The next boss in the line, it's the blue Terran, MaSa. A tricksy player, but this time most of his base is taking place inside of his main, so we're all good.
Yeah, so no multiple 2-racks. It is how we started things off in their last best of, but they've actually played each other a decent amount in the last couple of months, and I think even one of them was a best of 5, where Cham was able to 3-0. This was like a month and a half ago.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, okay. So
they
well, the point is, unlike some other matches we've had in some other WCSs where one person always lost to the other, these guys actually exchange series. So I'm thinking they both came in here. Well, again, they couldn't exactly prepare for each other entirely, but I really feel like Cham, it seems like he really gains a lot of confidence. Like, I don't want to say easily, but when he wins, he's like, yes, I can continue winning. Like, I can totally do this. Whereas MaSa, I can't figure, this guy has like a poker face to me, right? Because he just comes in and he's like, yeah, it's gonna be okay, and then he just wins, and you're like, okay, so you're gonna do more than okay. All right, gotcha.
Well, he is Korean, living abroad, so he does have that kind of Korean false modesty, where if you ask him like, how do you feel about this match, he'll be like, oh, I'm the worst player. I'm gonna for sure get destroyed here, and then they win 2-1, 3-0, or whatever, and you're like, excuse me? And he's like, oh man, I just got so lucky. It was really nice that it lined up that way. It's like, I don't know who they're appealing to, because I don't know what StarCraft fan or person that's even around this game thinks that these guys just like stumbled into this spot and luckily won a professional series. Like, it just doesn't happen. These guys are all on different levels. But anyways, enough about the modesty or lack thereof. Perhaps MaSa is going to open up this way, and we saw this again in some of his ZVTs in that round of 8, or whatever you want to call that, the round robin. And it ended up being kind of that battle mech style, which we're seeing some players utilize. I don't know that he'll necessarily go full bore that way, but that's where I would think he's going to take it.
That's like the thing I like to bring up when people are like, I don't understand what you mean by like MaSa just kind of shows up and is really, really good. And it's like, well, I don't actually, that's the Cyclone mech, the battle mech. I don't actually think that MaSa was practicing that a lot, but he has this innate ability to just kind of look at something and be like, you know what? That's a good idea. I'm going to go ahead and execute that. And his fundamentals, no matter, if he's practicing a lot or there's been a break or, it's been a couple months or something like that, it seems like they stay rather sharp.
Yeah.
And he can adapt very, very quickly. He also does have a lot of builds, so I think in the series that they played, we had a T-Rex, as expected, but then also some Hellbat shenanigans. And I think earlier on in WCS Winter, we even had MaSa maybe try a Battlecruiser build, as that was the flavor of the month in like January, February.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun thing about him. We can see this position really nicely here. The starport typically is found over by the normal production area, over by the barracks and the factory, but it's tucked kind of far back. Now, I think if you're Cham, you look at this, and maybe he doesn't even see the starport. In fact, he won't. But you can kind of infer it. What you can't necessarily infer is the full-on Cloak Banshee upgrade. Against MaSa, maybe you take it there because he just is so fond of it. It just very much so shows up in his compositions.
Well, that's the way I was bringing up the Battlecruiser, but usually you wouldn't have any factory production or gas factory production, right? You'd just be producing Hellions, and then maybe you tuck that starport in the back. But no, he showed the factory. He faked the Cyclone upgrade, which I'd be surprised if Cham read a lot into that, but obviously already seeing that it's not a Hellion opener, but also not a 2-1-1, you are already a little like, what is the Terran doing? So, while I don't see a ton of those fast Cyclone upgrade openers, and I would, I'd be like, oh, that's probably a fake. You can't really ever trust that. MaSa has done some very weird builds.
Yeah. Yeah, you were starting to kind of talk about that in terms of his breadth of the builds he brings to the table, and I think that's primarily what makes him so difficult. And also, it's something you talked about, is that sometimes he brings builds he's not necessarily even that well versed in, that's how spread out he is in his builds, and he executes them at a very high level. So he's got great micro, willing to take huge risks, and then he can do it pretty darn well. That's the scary trifecta. Whereas if you face someone who's like very good, but you know what they're going to do, sometimes you can cut some corners and get around that and kind of deal with that. But the other thing here too is Cham went into this practicing ZVP to make sure he beats Estrella. It's just the way these things work. Obviously he didn't like forego all other matchups, but it wasn't necessarily his main focus, I don't think. So this is interesting. Yeah,
at least get the one victory, assured, hopefully, and then worry about the ZVT later, which we're at that point. And as you were talking about, like hoping that you can predict your opponent, and can MaSa actually be predicted? I don't really know about that. He's already doing something a little weird. Cham still doesn't know about the extra barracks, or that it was a tank that popped out. I don't think he saw it on the low ground. And while he did build a Spore Crawler, it's still a little bit of a surprise already grabbing that Banshee, because the Spore Crawler was more in an anti-Liberator position.
Yeah.
So it's a little awkward here. Actually, a ton of Spore Crawlers. So he must have been thinking about maybe a double starport, but perhaps like a little bit later, right? So the Spore Crawler's just finished, and they're actually an overreaction at this point. So there's like a ton of things going through a Zerg player's mind when they can't see that starport timing or the starport production. And in the last couple of years, we've had, we've mentioned the Battlecruiser, but also double port Banshee, right? Could be a snowball effect if you don't take it seriously. And 3 Spore Crawlers, that's pretty serious.
Yeah, and that is, again, kind of the MaSa effect, right? Like, it could have been something super weird and super crazy. And if you underreact to MaSa, that's how you get a cheap win in MaSa's favor, and then all of a sudden it's a short best of 5, and you're on the train home. But he's going to pick up the second, or is that the third Banshee, actually? It's either the second. I mean, he killed 2. I'm wondering of how many is that is the question, but
yeah, there's 2.
Okay, 2 of 2. Really nice there, and the overreaction ends up being just great and paying for it. Now, I was talking about Battle Mech earlier. Not the case. It's going to be Bio. How we got here is a bit weird, but I think that's 2 or 3 tanks loaded up in the medevacs.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's been some change-ups to, we don't have just the 2-1-1 or a Hellion opener. We've had some like 4 Hellion into a faster 2 barracks type stuff, but regardless, we're getting some change-ups on these typical timings. In this case, we have 3 tanks at 7:30, trying to get into a really abusive position too. And they're going to actually siege up. These Hydras don't even have speed quite yet. Third one's not sieged up yet. But they are, actually, I don't think they focused right on top of the Banelings as much as they could have, as MaSa was trying to run away from them, not expecting perhaps the army to be so far off creep.
I was just going to say, for a relatively unupgraded Zerg army off creep, that fight went about as well as it possibly could. Got some Marines, but all 3 of the tanks, and all of a sudden this army of MaSa is like a little bit of bio and a couple of medevacs, which is fine off creep, but you step on that creep, you're going to be running for your life fairly soon. Getting some creep tumors, that's the best you can hope for. But as you pointed out, without opening up Hellions and Reaper and that kind of stuff, and having the Banshees relatively shut down after going pretty aggressive on that natural, the creep's going to be an issue. It's like this push out right here is the first answer to any creep, and even this is pretty mediocre.
It is, yeah, he's in danger of losing that second medevac. Even then, it doesn't have any Marines in it. So, yeah, I'd call it an unsuccessful first tank push. That really was supposed to be a bit more of a surprise, get situated a little better. And I think it was also just before combat shields had finished, so just really bad timing there. But it is important that he kept his medevacs and Marines alive, because I think that no matter what, that tank push doesn't actually last that long. Those earlier tank pushes usually don't last. But at least you can have the drops to continue pressuring your opponent and cleaning up that creep spread. And I was going to mention that Cham, you can almost always depend, it feels like, on Cham recently anyways, in his recent TvZs, going for some pretty fast Hive. And that's actually not really different here. He did add in Hydras or maybe some other games. He only went Ling Baneling. But he is once again going for a pretty fast Hive, and MaSa's going to really want to keep up that pressure. Also keep scouting on that main base, maybe around 10 minutes. They'll throw down a scan, be like, okay, you are doing what I thought you were doing. We already have a fusion core on the way for MaSa, and that 4th base being sent out.
And I'm loving the army split of Cham too. This is something a lot of Zerg players, if they have a downfall, they get a little bit away from this. A lot of times it's like Lings are separate, sure, but the rest of the army's kind of one globular area. In this case, he's actually chasing the individual drops off after they get maybe a creep tumor or two, so just really mitigating that. And then you can see the Queen's already come into frame. And you'll catch a little bit of sloppiness like that, where Marines go down to 2 Hydras. And MaSa's in a tough spot here. So the creep is hitting mid-map. It's just healing as fast as it's getting destroyed. Or faster, excuse me. And what's MaSa's plan? With that Hive coming up, like you said, that's some great pressure, right? Because by the time you're pushing out that kind of maxed out Terran army, it doesn't really include anti-Broodlord. It's usually supposed to apply pressure to the Zerg before they get to Broodlord. But Broodlord's already out. That push doesn't do much. Yeah,
or you're trying to catch them right as the ultras are popping, like maybe before Chitinous Plating, or maybe in this case you already have a decent number of Liberators, which are going to help even if there maybe aren't that many ultras, still in getting a strong position. So, I mean, I don't exactly know if MaSa really wants to do that much of a push. He's got to be very, very careful here again, scan the main, see exactly what's going on. Just because Cham has been in some Ultra games in the past doesn't mean we haven't seen him do Broodlords. In fact, that was one of the things that ended up making him, getting the victory over Special, was some Broodlord games. But does MaSa actually expect that? Or is he thinking purely about the ground army, as is right now he's thinking purely about defending, as Cham is the one starting to be aggressive, getting some Lings in the natural. Can't really pressure a Terran who's, you know, not already dead and there's a planetary and chokes on their side, but he's taking some decent trades here.
Love it. Baneling's sweeping around here, getting the surround on that planetary. Gets so low in health, and it will end up going down, as well as 28 SCVs. And the bio of MaSa got split up some friendly fire, killing a lot of medevacs there. So this army of Cham will back up, but it traded out mostly Lings and Banelings for a planetary, for a full saturation worth of minerals. And all of a sudden, it's up to MaSa to probably get off his keister and get across the map and get some return damage. But after losing all those medevacs and even a few of the Liberators, I don't see the teeth in this army.
No, I don't either. I mean, the Liberators, the count is getting scary, but not against Corruptors and Broodlords, and not when the army can also outposition you. If you're the one that's defending, then they might find different avenues of attack, which is literally just happened. MaSa really was not supposed to lose that planetary for being in the defensive position. So he's probably kicking himself right now. He has 2 choices. Either he goes for like the all-in, which would basically lose. He doesn't have an appropriate army. Now even sees the Corruptors if he wasn't sure about that before. Or he just goes into defensive mode again, which is, I think, what he's choosing to do, and I think is the right choice.
It's his only choice, to your point. I think that's the case. But here comes Cham. He's going to come in for the full surround. He is off creep, of course, and he's going to decide to pull back here. A lot of Corruptors making up this army, which should very much so signify to MaSa, you better start thinking about Broodlords, because Cham certainly is. Liberator in the background got a few kills there and is stunting the production on this mineral line. Fine. A little bit of return damage is good.
He got the fusion core, but he never got the range for Liberators. That might have been one of those, like, he meant to get it as he was attacked, and now he might forget about it for a little while. He also does have to start thinking more about Broodlords, which Liberators only help out to a certain degree. You want to get into maybe Ghost, and in some situations, Vikings as well, but there's definitely, I would say, debate amongst the Terrans and Zergs of that late-game army, and it seems like whoever's already in control, right? In this case, I would say it's Cham. MaSa's just trying to keep his head above water. Is that if you're going to get to the air faster, the other person kind of has to be like, okay, I'm going with a different path, right? So in this case, it's a Terran that says, okay, I can't win the Vikings. You're going to have Corruptors, you're going to have Creep Spread, you're going to have Vipers probably eventually, so I'm going to try and get those Ghosts into play, but they can be very difficult to use, and you are still kind of depending on maybe the Zerg player being a little overconfident, saying like, aha, I have this huge bank.
Yeah.
I have all this tech. I'm going to try and push you again.
I don't disagree. I think the problem is that Cham's playing this super intelligent, right? Like, he has all those advantages you talked about, but rather than leaping forward and trying to end the game prematurely, he's actually hanging back and saying MaSa's a really counterattacky, harass-oriented type of Terran. So he's just swatting it all down right now, and he's forcing MaSa to take that defensive role, which he's just, again, that's not how he got here. That's not why he's one of the top Terrans. It's not off a defensive play. It's off of relentless aggression and fantastic micros. So he's putting MaSa in an uncomfortable position, but it's eventually going to get to that hard math that we've talked about, where it's like, no, you get so far ahead that eventually you do actually have to come after the Terran. That's what Cham will do.
King's Cove is certainly not a bad map for MaSa to play this style on. You do get these 5 bases up pretty okay, and then there's a 6th right in front of where your siege line is being set up. Now we see the Banelings do a decent bit of damage. That was almost a catastrophe for Cham, by the way. Those Widow Mines were so close to killing all those Banelings, but do end up breaking supply depots, getting 12 SCVs. But yeah, MaSa can play. Obviously, he didn't just lose when he lost the Planetary, and while that was a strong anchor point to the forward of his army, his production, he still has Liberators, Widow Mines, and now even missile turrets to create that forward point. And I think he can hold against an army like this, but it's got to go kind of perfectly here. These Ghosts have got to get some snipes on those Broodlords because he really doesn't have any other answer.
Yeah, but then the Infestors.
Yeah, 1 fungal and all of these snipes are canceled, so you're looking for a decent concave. You're looking to maybe snipe the Infestors, or I meant with Marauders, actual snipe, or EMP them if you think you can get it off.
This fight's being targeted right here because this would be the next base that MaSa would have to take. And the jockeying for position has begun, but you can see the creep already at the lip of this. That's kind of the nasty byproduct of the lack of effective harass, is that this gets to be reinforced by this. The Queens can contribute more effectively.
This is where Liberators do start to shine, not just against Ultras, but in general holding a position. But it looks like Cham's going to try and break it. There are so many Liberators that actually aren't even helping with this fight. They're not being repositioned until the very last second. There's so many Corruptors left over. And that's actually it for MaSa, really. I'm seeing a mostly Liberator Ghost army that's dying here. Where's the other supply? It's nowhere to be found, and Cham is going to break MaSa.
He's going to break MaSa and with it take the game. He's going after that 6 o'clock depth. Forget about it. Cham looking to be a bit of a juggernaut here. He rolled over Estrella. If it wasn't just off that kind of mid-game army, it was certainly off that hive tech that he gets to very quickly. He's made it just look easy, I would say.
Yeah, that game looked very strong for Cham, but I do believe that's a game that everyone can identify with no matter what race you play. You had a plan. You had a mid-game plan. In this case, MaSa went for Banshees that were supposed to do a little bit more, and then into tanks that were definitely supposed to hold a position longer. And then it gets absolutely swamped, and you're like, okay, here we go. And then you have to dive into the longer game, which I think could have been fine had he not lost that Planetary to start things off. That just wasn't really supposed to happen, and it does set you back in being able to transition to Ghosts, which are a little expensive, along with Liberators and along with Static Defense, which can be very helpful.
I don't disagree, but I feel like we are describing like a blind date for a friend where it's like they're really funny. Like they have a lot going for them. They're really funny. What do they do for work? Work? Hey, not everyone needs a job. It's like one of those things, whereas Cham is the one that I'm really impressed by so far. At every stage of this, we're like making excuses for MaSa being okay, but Cham was dominant. He predicted the need for multiple Spore Crawlers in position at that mineral line at the natural. He swatted down the Cloaked Banshees, all the harass throughout the game. He split up his army. Yeah, if MaSa had the Planetary, he would have been in okay shape, but he didn't have the Planetary because Cham was being relentless with his Baneling harass, and he was doing a very good job of getting everything he could out of that. So even that fight at the Planetary was basically allowed to go as well as it did because he positioned Hydras and Lings to jailbreak them into the natural by busting open the depot wall, pulling the Terran army out of position, then getting the full concave on the Planetary. So this is a new Cham. Like, Cham to me is a swarmy, aggressive NA Zerg that is very good and talented, but mostly just about, aggression at the right time or the wrong time. But this is a different level. This is good mechanics. This is strong strategy, and everyone's chasing his tail right now.
I agree with that. Cham does seem to be more consistent than we saw him in the earlier rounds. He was very close to being knocked out in, I believe, the round of 32, and then brought it back in a game that we didn't really expect him to. And I mean, he's actually really just carrying forward with the momentum across. I mean, WCS Winters actually lasted for almost 3 months.
The whole winter.
Yeah, the whole winter, wow. And he's not actually faltered. He's just been getting better and better, and now he's up 1-0 against MaSa. But I will say that was probably MaSa's, it just was not his desired type of
he's
game.
like, I'll try a normal one for the fans.
Yeah, and I do believe he still has a lot of tricks up his sleeve.
Yes.
I also think that if he had played a more normal game, some Hellion pressure, the risk of a Hellbat attack, so on and so forth, it might have gone better, but he did confuse Cham. Of that, I'm almost certain. Cham must have been thinking about the multiple starport options, and it ended up only being 2 Banshees, but he still dealt with them very, very nicely. So what else does MaSa have in store as we head into game number 2? It is a little bit on him as he's down 1. We're going to new repugnancy in the bottom left as the red Zerg for Chivo up 1. It is Cham.
Fantastic player intro.
Thank you. I tried really hard.
Yeah. Tried so hard, but in the end, it did not even matter. In the top right-hand side, it's the Blue Terran from Canada and Korea, now in America. It's MaSa. And he's not cheesing again. Well, okay, that barracks is a little bit far forward, so it's going to get weird, but it's still not cheese for me.
No.
Not for MaSa. I expect more.
It's not in your natural 2-rax.
It needs to be right next to your base.
Yeah. Forward position, though.
It's going to be some Reapers, I think.
On one of the smaller maps. Very well could be. MaSa has been a pro for a very long time. And while he hasn't been, up there in the top 4 of every single WCS, he has had his strong performances, and he's just been going through the whole... I mean, his playbook of build doesn't only include the common metas of 2014. It also includes the uncommon metas and all those weird builds that happened back then. So he's got it all pretty much. And while Reaper-based builds have all been kind of agreed upon not to be too great, there is that chance that they mess up, that they let that snowball happen, and then suddenly you are winning because they're like, who makes more than 7 Reapers? Who makes more than 11 Reapers? And you're like, aha! I do. And you win.
Yeah, we saw this from MaSa again in that round of 8, and it's just weird because it's exactly what you just described. It's like, okay, a few Reapers, that's interesting. You made an extra 1 or 2, but then there's actually 9, and if you underestimate it, or if the game gets, you have one engagement that you think you'll get the surround on, but a couple grenades go off, they bounce you away, and they start killing, the game can just get to weird spots. What I don't mind this for, though, for Cham is, and part of the reason why we usually have a little bit more of a jovial nature in the America's side of WCS, these guys are all used to it, man. Cham, when he ladders, and like they talked about in the opening show, is a bit of a grinder. This guy plays a lot of StarCraft. He's used to the weirdest stuff, man. He's okay with it. He's actually one of the true NA players. Also, Cham also does play on the European ladder, but because he's in Mexico, a lot of his games are played on the NA server.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. Cool. He's going to go with the Roach path, which is, I mean, when it was the most popular build, that was, you ideally went to. You got enough Ravagers with an extra range to actually poke toward the Reapers, kind of take the count down a little bit, and before you know it, suddenly you overwhelm them, and you win. You can play with Lings and even Banelings, but I think it's a much more dangerous thing to do, where Roaches, even in the worst case scenario, hopefully aren't dying, literally dying to the Reapers. But once you get up to 7, 8, 9, 10, suddenly Roaches are dying. And it is still about stopping that snowball.
You can actually start juggling Roaches, which is such a weird thing to see, but it does work that way.
This is also the opportunity, the first opportunity for WCS Winter for MaSa to do this without any ping issues whatsoever, right next to each other. I saw the camera shot. And that might be why he's really going to try and push it here, but he is expanding behind this. It's not going into like 5 racks or 6 racks or any of those insane builds of +1. But already losing a Reaper, I believe, there, almost a second one.
Yeah, he just lost the 1 so far.
Okay. You're right.
Which is, like you said, suboptimal, but not the end of the world here. That being said, though, again, we're describing that like blind date, right? Like, that was okay and it's not bad for MaSa, but Cham, great defense. And like you point out, I love going the route of roaches here as opposed to lings. Because again, lings, yeah, they can get the surround. This is some good damage. 3 drones die right there. It's a little bit more of an if situation, right? Like, it does come down to finding the Reapers in the right spot, getting the surround on them, and then, yes, there's so many grenades that you will get juggled, but maybe there's self-inflicted damage there, that kind of stuff. But with roaches, it's more just like, nah, leave a few in your natural, leave a few in your main, or you can ghost them here if you want, and you'll just shut down the damage. And if the Terran player's not careful, you can turn this around and just go win the game, too.
So what this does as we go into the mid game, we don't have Cham going for like an all-in saying I'm gonna kill these and then kill you. Is that no?
Bro, that is a half-court shot at the buzzard that landed it. I'm all right.
I mean, you aren't looking for that corrosive bio when you jump up there, and oh god.
Okay.
Oh, that was really nice by Cham. Took that. I think he halved the Reaper count.
You don't see that often. Like, the typical Zerg player, this is the guy that, like, they've been playing Legos for 25 years, but it's the red, the yellow, the blue, and they're just making their people, you know? They make the city, they make the house, they build everything. It just takes forever. They're the blue-collar worker. But sometimes a special chosen Zerg steps forward like that and lands a shot that took brain power and predictive nature, and it's like seeing an alien race develop technology. Like, wow, it can do that now?
It's like literally seeing an alien race evolve.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk it?
Someone needs to make a game like that or something.
Yeah. All right. So to my point before that is that as we head into the mid game, and we are now heading into like an official mid game, is that Cham is going to be kind of like quote unquote forced to play roaches, which if MaSa was going to go for bio, which he's not, might be something he's more comfortable against. You know, bio versus roach, which I think actually a lot of Terran players find themselves a little more comfortable against, even though it's not like the easiest thing. But we are actually getting mech from MaSa, in which case I don't actually mind that Cham is going roaches, and I don't think he'll mind either. Once he figures that out, I think he sent something in the main base, but I can just check.
Observer disagrees. No. I'm Captain
Yeah, he saw the star. That's right. He saw the Banshees in the starport, but he didn't see the extra factories. So.
Oh.
I mean, it might still be up in the air.
Oh, you were talking about the Terran main base. Actually, both the Observer and I read that the same way. We're like, what?
My bad then.
I don't know why though, but because after you're explaining what you were just yeah, we should have thought. I don't know. It's me and the Observer. We thought the same thing.
You know what? I'll just go ahead and take the L there and say that was my bad.
Very humble of you.
No, thank you. I'm very humble.
Here's Banshee. This is the damage they were looking for. This is what they wanted.
Which is a little surprising, because that is the thing that Cham scouted, was that there were going to be Banshees.
It's that, like, MaSa game where you're like, well, I scouted Banshees, so it's the Banshees, and it ends up being Banshees, which is, like, supposed to be your third guess. So not bad damage here. I think the thing that's interesting about this is that they're creating space. The third is getting established for MaSa behind that, which is really good. But you had just said this as just an offhand comment at the beginning. It's a very small map, so battle mech is okay here, but sometimes what happens is the battle, you lose just a certain amount of cyclones, and then you're like rebuilding. They build very fast, don't get me wrong, but the point I'm trying to make is you're kind of one bad fight away from this game could just end. You don't have tanks behind that. You don't have a Widowmine field. Battle mech is about trading out constantly and forever and over-expanding behind it until you then get that army that can win the game, or you just kind of starve out the Zerg. But we've seen good surrounds. We've seen fungals get landed. That kind of stuff can just end the game on this map.
I absolutely agree. It basically, on a smaller map, you are creating these like winning scenarios off of a, if it was year 0, it's just a good scenario.
Yeah.
Suddenly you are just steamrolling forward, cleaning up all the creep, or in the Zerg's case, steamrolling forward and killing all their bases, because you're right, you do have to expand quite quickly with this style. I mean, even in some cases, this style can feel faster than bio, which is not usually what we think about when we talk about factory versus barracks tech, but these Banshees being speedy, he did go ahead and research that speed, are giving Cham even more of a headache, already starting off nice with the initial Banshees, but now keeping these alive. They do outrun an Overseer if they run, not if they stand in attack. Okay then, so we're down to 2 Banshees, so that's not quite hatchery stepping power anymore, and I'm not sure about that trade for MaSa, but at least he has them alive, so maybe stick them in a corner and deny some creep spread somewhere.
And that's just kind of the MaSa thing. We're seeing a little bit more of that than I think he would like, obviously. He's a little bit of a sloppy player. There's just no question about it. he'll take fights he shouldn't, he'll move to places he probably should not, and it's going to cost him. And in this case, they're very fast, but they're not so fast that they can show up, get 5 kills, and then disappear without a cost. Or maybe they can if the other player's not as on top of things as Cham is apparently. But the Banshee count's now down to 1 or 2, which just doesn't matter. And after such an investment in what they represent otherwise, it's a missed opportunity.
He's doing that, and I forget who did this in TY Innovation, something like that. He's doing that thing where you only do go for 1 starport, but you don't produce anything else from it besides 1 Banshee at a time. So every time the Zerg player's like, finally, I'm done with Banshees. 4 do appear, and they snipe your hatch, and you're like, wait, no, I killed 4 already. The point is, it still provides some other attack area. So it's pretty difficult to split Cyclone Hellbat into attacks. You don't have a medevac to pick them up like Bio, and they do require a lot of control. But you can maybe send a Banshee over, and then they don't have Cloak, and they try to creep spread or whatever, and it doesn't work out. So I like it as long as he doesn't continue losing them, right? Which so far it's not been like exactly a winning record, but he's moving.
It's not the biggest of deals. I like everything you just broke down there. Behind this, though, is where I'm looking. He's at 4 bases going on 5, which is going to put him on equal footing to Cham. Cham's just now establishing his 5th base. It's not being saturated just yet. He is heading towards Hive, as he's wont to do, and that's all fine and good. But it's not like Mech doesn't have answers for that. It naturally does. As long as you have enough tech labs down, which you will be able to make a few rounds of Thors if you want to go that route, which you probably should. You can add more starports if you do find that to be your answer. But the point I'm trying to make here is MaSa's in position to not be caught off guard by a fast Hive tech. And he's got quite the economy behind this. Great Fungals there will clean up the amount of Banshees for now.
You know what, though? I would like seeing the Fungals elsewhere when I'm doing this attack. And then being used as well. As that's the one thing that could suddenly kill this entire army is a couple Fungals from behind on creep, and then the Hydras just go, aha, gotcha. So, again, the Banshee's not exactly ideal, but they're providing some value where MaSa's also trying to find some damage. He does find the Infestors. Unfortunately, the army is just slightly out of position, so it doesn't really get to abuse it, but still getting a surround in these chokes. He can maybe exit to the north side, which is what he's trying to do, but he is losing units where otherwise you would hope to get the lock on and get out of there without losing anything.
Huge surround, and the army came from kind of janky, weird positions and timing, but the end result's the same. You're fighting on creep. Your Hydras are doing battle with Cyclones without that much insulation, and it's going to cost the Terran player more. Supply is not the biggest of deals in the sense that it's not like MaSa is just critically understaffed here, and his army does rebuild fairly quickly, so Cham has to be careful not to, I don't know, overextend, kind of think more happened there than did. But that was a good start, and it came at a critical time, because if you look at that production tab too, we are getting the Greater Spire, we are having Corruptors come out, and that would be the time where you'd want that mass of mech to be able to shove around the map.
I think what must be worrying for Cham is that he has not been on MaSa's side of the map except for that brief point just now, and he didn't even do anything with it. Like a single tank helped the reinforcements, and that was kind of it for him. He's never really gotten that big of a bank. He's also not able to expand all over the map, going back to the size of the map. So that's one thing that you might be hoping for as the mech player is like, well, you can't take these bases way off to the left side and right side without me noticing. And it's actually MaSa who's managing to not just keep up with the bases, but even start to overexpand. So he might be the one more comfortable with trades. I think they've been bouncing back and forth on that income graph, and Cham is going into very expensive tech. Where MaSa, I mean, he's kind of replacing Cyclone production for Liberator production, but his army is getting better. I am a little worried he's not taking the Broodlord threat seriously enough, but then if he takes on the ground army, the Cyclones can take on the Broodlords.
Your little concern is my end of time. There's 6 Broodlords in production, and we're fighting some Spinecrawlers down here in the army, so this is ultimately not going to result in a dead base. I'd be very hard-pressed to see that happening. Even with the Liberators here as an anchor, it's just, well, maybe if you lock onto it entirely and really kind of dive on this. But the Broodlords are now here. Their presence is known. The fight will be dislodged in favor of Cham. And what's the answer? Look at the production tab. It's just more Cyclones coming out. Can they deal with this?
If Cham continues pushing, I think, this would be a bad mistake. That would be bad from him. He doesn't have a big remax here. His Broodlord count's not that high, and he knows that MaSa must be on multiple starport production, so he could be running into 10 Vikings all of a sudden. So,
or 0. You're right.
Yes, or 0.
I'm making a joke. Like, there is actually that potential. As you pointed out, though, MaSa did a fantastic job of overexpanding behind this, so he's just going to keep making Cyclones because he's tunnel vision here a little bit. And he's got the money to do that as long as he's killing stuff. The Broodlords, though.
Yeah, I am.
Well, lock it on.
If you can get the lock-ons, then great. If you can actually get that ground army so small that the Cyclones can engage there, then absolutely fantastic. And I think that is the point where we found ourselves. Corruptors are coming forward now to help out with the Liberator problem, though, which we're missing for a little while. I think he turned all of them into Broodlords initially.
Look.
And there we go. Finally gets them packing.
The Liberators are so bad against Corruptors and Broodlords. It was comical.
Yes.
The missiles they're shooting must actually be like present-day fireworks because they are nothing. Their underslung gun, of course, is fantastic, but the missiles they were just doing there was comical. And he's starting to, wow, he's actually still just making more Liberators.
Yeah, I feel like this is a...
5 at a time.
I feel like he's a little overconfident, but it's hard to argue with results. He is in such a... His advantage in momentum alone seems to be really working out for him here. Cham can't replace his ground army and make as many Broodlords as he wants. He can't even get into Spellcasters again. He's lost his Fungals. So his choice seems to be kind of going as many Broodlords as possible and hope that MaSa does make a compositional mistake, which I feel like he's close to doing. These Cyclones, the day that they can't reach the Broodlords, he has nothing else to deal with them when he could be making maybe some Thors here to help out.
He's actually so rich that this might just actually work. Like he might be able to just literally take one of the worst units in this like pairing and make it work. But I'll tell you what, this is hard mode. Like just a few cycles of Vikings to actually cancel out the Broodlords is all it takes. There's no ground army for the Zerg except for a smattering of... I mean, there's literally one Swarm Host for some reason. The misclick Swarm Host.
Yeah. Well, like, it's that situation where Cham is very much so depending on his Broodlords, right? More than anything else. He wants that to save the day. And they may be able to, but that's when Vikings, if you micro them, can take them out while they're going to the other side of the map to deal with the Hellion pressure. But I'm also thinking for a straight-up fight, Thors would do fantastic in this position. There's no Vipers, no Neuroparasite. Like, they would easily take out the Broodlords, but MaSa does not want to go in anything but Liberators and Cyclones and more upgrades for them. He's barbecuing what was already a very tiny economy. Cham had lost an important mining base since he was only on 5 for so long, and now he's down to, well, actually down to 65 workers. But the point is, he's not mining very efficiently, and there goes another base here with another attack by MaSa.
Yep. The mobility of this is fantastic. It really is. So that part of this I like a lot. I'm enjoying just how... Again, he's like not able to fight the army very well, but he just shows up at these bases. He's torching a lot of the drones, and then he takes the fight though. And I'm like, do you not see this? You can be where he's not. And he's like, well, gosh, I need more Liberators. He's producing more. They're gonna die on the retreat.
I'm like trying to explain this as like a very
if he
like.
loses this game,
I would blame it. Yeah, like he would have been a little bit of a throw.
He's on 7 bases this whole time. He actually has no minerals. He has 1,000 gas. He's up in supply the whole game. I think he might lose.
He might, and I can't tell if it's being stubborn or he's thinking of an ideal scenario that hasn't happened yet. And by that I mean he has like 8 Cyclones on the ground and he catches the Corruptors being too forward. So then he takes them out and then gets the Broodlords. But again, it feels like it feels unnecessary. There are other options, basically.
He made 1 Raven.
Yes, for the anti-armor, I suppose, and the Corruptors to help out, which it is very effective.
It is, and that's going to turn that tide, is what he's saying, for the inevitable battle of Corruptors versus Liberators, again, as anti-air continues to rage. But Cham's army is the more powerful one, and has been for a long time, and it's not really for a want of anything other than the fact that basically, 7 minutes ago, MaSa determined he would only make Hellions, Cyclones, and Liberators. That's it.
Yeah. He's not changing it up at all, which when you see Thors in action, the new Thor, right? They got a buff basically specifically against Broodlords, well, carriers, I guess in Blizzard's mind, but they dominate. If there's no Blinding Cloud, there's no Neuroparasite, they are amazing, especially when the Broodlord count isn't that high. You know, like 20 Broodlords shooting Broodlings is always a little bit complicated, but I would say 6 Thors, a couple of those Cyclones or Hellbats instead, and yeah, got ourselves 2 going. But instead, taking these fights, even now, Cyclones on the front line.
Yeah.
taking the brunt of the broodlings, so a lot of them died there. But maybe this is the scenario he was waiting for.
He murdered the corruptors. so this was the dream scenario right now.
Yeah.
He still can't kill the broodlords because
Good target fire by Cham, I think, on the cyclones. There we go, as well. But he is the one that can't replace an army, and MaSa has out-economied him, outproduced him.
Yes.
Cham is now...
It finally happened.
Yeah, now dead. Whereas before, if he had kept that army alive and running, maybe he could have regained his economy, and we could have had a much longer game.
You know what's
now
funny?
Now it's dead.
It was the anti-armor missile. So the missile hit, and then he locked on with all the cyclones on the corruptors. They died in like 2 seconds flat. It was not even close. And that cost, like you just talked about, was what tipped this in his favor. Behind this, there's liberators harassing mineral lines. There's no new bases being taken, so the trading has just finally found its course. Cham is down at 114 supply and not seeming to be able to get any higher. He doesn't have an army to snowball. If he had like 9 broodlords, okay, yeah, there's something to be done here. Nope. And Cham does tap out as MaSa takes the game, but guys, just make something different. Yeah, that's just funny too. Is it was going poorly, adds a Raven, and he's like, wow, that power's really good. I should probably look at some of these other units too.
That was the scenario I figured he was hoping for, and it did work out. So again, hard to argue when someone actually wins a game.
Yeah, it worked.
I really feel like it could have been a little bit easier. But then maybe in his mind, as soon as he backed off a little bit to build Thors, which take a little while and they're expensive, that's when he loses momentum. And that might be true.
Fair enough.
But that's usually when you got Hellions running around, which he did. So I'm like, it's sort of true. I don't know, but it worked. But was that a new Repugnancy special, or are we going to see that type of play again? Because that seems to be, I think MaSa did that the same way last time we saw him. WCS Winter, same map, same style.
A lot of pro gamers have builds that are obviously for maps as opposed to even matchups or situations in the best of. Hard to say which MaSa, how he ranks all of that in terms of his build orders and where he executes them. I was almost in the Scarlet series, which is kind of the popular one when you refer to MaSa's TvZ. He did go back to Battle Mech a couple of times because it just is very crisp and good. And he does do a little bit different here. Like we expected these tech switches, but it worked in the end. So, you know, for all the bemoaning I was doing and stuff like that, who cares? He got the win.
Yeah.
And they're tied up. Not bad.
He was still playing the style very well. Always engaging, even if maybe he could have swapped the composition a little bit, and always doing run buys. And he took advantage of the small map where Cham was kind of just like, I need to take this one base, or like I can't take any other ones. There's no secret one at the very top left or anything like that. But again, it was such a small map that it could have easily turned. One good engagement, a couple good blinding clouds, or in Cham's case, fungals. He was going for the infestor path. And then MaSa regrets doing it on such a short map. But it worked out. And now we're going to be heading into game number 3, all tied up.
Philosophically speaking, are you the kind of person that result is all that matters? How you get there does not?
No.
Right.
I don't agree with that.
That was the psychopathic question I was asking you.
Oh, okay, good. Good. I passed, right?
Yeah, I mean, if in front of our meager audience you were to answer, like, no, it's only the results that matter, which is funny because, you know, philosophically speaking, if the end result is what everyone cares about, then you could think about that being the glorified point. But how you get there is actually important.
Yes, it is.
Not in MaSa's case, though, because how he got there was ugly and weird, but he got the result of a win.
I mean, do you agree with Thanos, or don't you? Do you agree with the snap, or do you think he could have used the almighty power of the gauntlet to create world peace in other ways?
What if he snapped twice? Is that half of a half?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
You know what's funny about the snap, though, is that was just his wish, and he had the power to do that. It's not actually that you snap and it kills. It's just that with that much power, he symbolized it that way.
Yes, he did.
So why did you, I don't know, snap twice on accident? Or had Thor just simply stabbed him in his head? It never would have happened.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone blames Star-Lord, but it was actually Thor's problem.
It's Thor's problem.
Blame him!
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, we are into game number 3, and it's all tied up. It's on Cyber Forest in the top left. As the Red Zerg, he is Cham.
And he is mixing things up. He's predicting something here. That's not happening.
That's not happening.
Bottom right-hand side doesn't know what all these silly commentators are talking about with cheese and weird builds, because he's playing totally normal. It's the Blue Terran MaSa.
Well, that first map's build was a little
bit weird.
A little off.
Do you know where MaSa's name comes from, by the way?
MaSa's, like MaSa that, no, I don't.
he was a big fan of NASA, but actually in Canada it's called MaSa.
I 100% believe you.
Yeah?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
That's good. Everyone should.
Yeah. Well, we can always depend on you for, you know, fact checking and
Yes.
number crunching, and then also by telling the truth all the time,
Yes.
every time. Thank you, Jeff and Control Robinson, for
The
being
arbitrator
our
of
lives.
truth in this question. Yeah, I mean, in these dark times where you don't know what's what, you got Ravi on the commentating desk making like dad jokes, but he's not a dad. You got
Yeah.
Nate not balance whining, but he's still Nate, so I don't
Yeah.
understand what's going on there even. It's you need something to hold on to.
Yeah. And in this
the
case,
timing
that's
of it.
you.
Yep.
So I believe last time Cham went for a pool first, and whether that's, you know, there's always that thing where it's
Oh, he
like,
did?
okay, it could have been for the anti-2-racks defense. It also could have been because he wanted to apply the pressure. MaSa scouted. MaSa does throw out the SCV scout every so often, make sure that he doesn't get surprised, have to cancel his command center to 6 lings because his Reaper was off in the middle of nowhere. In this case, I actually didn't even go for a Reaper, so an extra need to go for the SCV scout. He's going for
Yeah.
reactor first, and there are going to be enough Marines now to deal with this.
And Cham's even respecting it. He splits off the lings even after they're spotted, so there's no one to be caught off guard by that, but he's looking for proxies because that's what this build is designed to try and catch. Or, like you said, at best maybe get a cancel on low ground CC, but it's just so much time was bought. He's like, there's either a Reaper out here, or there's now something else that can answer for the lings, but he's still going to eventually poke up here. And he actually could have earlier. That's the funny thing. He could have gone in here more aggressively, but
Yeah.
there's too many Marines now. Oh, wow. A little bit sloppy from Cham. Marines don't run down lings, right? They don't.
What do you mean they don't run them down?
Well, they
Like,
don't
their
outpace
speed. Oh, okay.
Because he turned around and took that fight, and it was just never going to work. Never in a million years.
Yeah, maybe he had already gone too far forward, figured they were gonna die anyways. But you're right, they don't.
Or just a
Oh,
misclick.
hello. Oh, you did a bad job, Marine. So you die.
What is
You
happening?
die, and your organs are revealed on the ground.
Man, MaSa runs a tight ship. I'll tell you what. That was
That's a
kind of
full
sad.
Marine.
Yeah, it's like when like a gerbil has a litter of
Oh,
well,
no.
actually, this is a joke we can't do.
I don't like where that was going.
Yeah, I can't do it. So
Okay.
let's back out of there, guys. When gerbils have kids, they're fine.
They're
There's
fine.
no reabsorbing. Don't look up that term. No one ever does that. Okay.
Yeah, don't look that up.
We learned about the miracle of life from our pets a very different way when I was growing up, and that was a shocking one.
Was it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's
sorry.
nothing like watching
Oh, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then having your mom panic and try to explain it.
Are we going that direction? Yeah. Well.
She did.
This.
The gerbil did.
Oh God. Actually, in my case, I had a snake and I had mice, and you know what? That doesn't end up going very well.
Listen, that one though, I learned that from Lion King. Like that, I understand the circle of life.
Oh yes, yes.
They did not put gerbils into Lion King for reasons that I now understand very well.
Thankfully, when our parents can explain something to us, there's Disney movies that can.
Yes.
Exactly. So this was really important. Cham tried to get the full scout on MaSa's build, but was cut literally just short. Like,
Really?
the Marines were not really in position. They almost screwed up because the other barracks was very close to being seen. So you do see that there's the stim, but you didn't even, like, there's actually such a perfect denial. You don't even see that the factory has been moved off, but you also can't see the natural and if there's more Hellions. But you do see, he did actually check into the natural to see something, so he saw the wall, and he hasn't seen any more Hellions out in the map, so you can start putting 2 and 2 together. And when there's only one engineering bay, and there's not a lot of Hellions, you're going to start thinking more to the 2 base, which is, it feels like it's actually kind of coming back in general, but also MaSa doing this is not surprising. I think he's been taking some influence from some of our other Korean Terrans, GSL and such. And it's a question, is Cham going to be prepared for this? Does he know it's on the way? And even if he does he remember how to hold it nice and well?
Just that Baneling nest going down here. Still drone cycles coming out though, as the bio is coming out on the map. So I think this is going to catch him pretty off guard. 9 drones queued up. There is actually nothing in production.
Yeah,
So
it
he's
looks
in
like
a lot of double Evo chamber, lair, Baneling nest just finishes.
I am a little surprised. Maybe Cham didn't go back and check, or maybe he's been tricked by such a facade before and he knows with 3rd CC, but there definitely wasn't. It was definitely a 2-base attack, and he is definitely underprepared.
He's got a lot of queens, as Zergus wants to do, so that's the good news. But this is going to be slow banelings, and even on creep, that's a tough order. And in like, Zombie said, it's 2 base, so it's just all production coming at this. Just the 1 tank, though. He's buying some time. MaSa's not really committing just yet. Big fight here now on the queens. Oh, okay, a lot of lings getting on top of the tank. They're melting pretty quickly. Baneling's not connecting with anything.
I actually kind of like how Cham was holding this, but then he did just lose those banelings, which now opens the floodgates. But originally it seemed like he was trying to wait it out with stims. Didn't end up working out. MaSa does take the victory off of what was actually a surprise build. It worked. Even though there were some signs, Cham didn't quite see enough.
In future WCS productions, we would cut right now, because this is the kind of free labor that I think we should utilize. Cyril's in Burbank, so what I would do is I would have Cyril in like a themed room, and I'd go, we're going to cut to Cyril now and have Cyril dissect this build and how you hold it off. And we cut to him and be like, wow, it's pretty simple. You have the lings at the very beginning and you cut off reinforcements. And when there's no reinforcements, your 9 queens get on top of the army and you win.
It's weird how in controls, Finnish sounds like a Swedish Viking.
Whoa. The fact that you even think Finland and Sweden are 2 different countries is a little embarrassing right now. I apologize. Geography in America is something that some people lack in, and she's from Virginia, a simpler part of the country.
That's true. I don't know my up from my west.
There's a west and a normal Virginia, as far as I understand it. What happened? Speaking of reabsorbing, where's North and South Virginia?
The southern part of Virginia does want to actually succeed,
I understand that.
All right, guys, we're going to be getting into game number 4 with MaSa up 2-1 in just a second. We're going to go to a quick break. Don't go anywhere. The finale of the series could be coming up. See you soon.
Could be.
Oh, that was really quick. Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You want to see how this ends? Well, so do we. TvZ is an amazing matchup, and while it hasn't been the super back and forth, bio versus mutas, I actually don't think even Cham does mutas very often.
Hang on, let me
It's
turn
still
the
been
lights
pretty
on
cool.
here. Just gotta find the right button
Just
to
press the button.
turn on the light.
I like this actually.
Yeah.
I don't need to look good. I need to keep my eyes nice and healthy. I
You always
definitely
look
prefer
good.
that. Oh shit.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. You look good too.
I know.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, once we got
There's
everything
not actually
sorted
a light
out.
switch. I'm just, what?
No, there's not. But
Do you want me to take the elevator real quick? You ever seen that?
no, I've not.
You don't
it-
get that reference?
No, I know. Are you gonna
ever
do the
seen
thing when you do the desk?
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah. Hey!
Yeah. Super professional.
Yeah.
The P in StarCraft stands for professional. So, we are gonna get into game number 4 very soon.
Better that than what else it could stand for, I guess.
Pajamas.
Pajamas. That would be
Pie.
a disastrous representation of the letter P. MaSa winning this would be... Would you have predicted that? You asked me a prediction, but I was a bad co-host and did not ask you the same question. Would you have picked MaSa to beat Cham?
I did actually predict MaSa beating Cham, just based off their last series. I mean, but I thought it was gonna be close. I didn't say that because you didn't ask me,
Wow.
but I was gonna say that I think MaSa might take this.
Still could be close.
Maybe
Yeah.
I did. Maybe I did. Well, as we wait, let's just give you guys a reminder and how much everyone loves StarCraft and how cool of an esport it is and how much these guys are playing for.
Wow.
Not just pride, not just honor, but also some cash and some WCS points. Probably, in some cases, even more desirable than the cash. You want a chance at the big global finals at the end of the year, if you can. So already, by not being in last place, Cham has advanced so forward $1,000 and wants to continue doing that, and then some more, and then some more.
Yeah.
And then he's up there in the 12,000, taking first place, away from Scarlet.
That's a tough one.
That is tough, though, especially since you're already down 1. And I think most of us, even though we're, there's plenty of great games before that, I think most of us are predicting the Neebs Scarlet finals.
Yeah, I mean, they're the two most powerful players in the bracket. I think you got to watch out for that Time guy, though.
Yeah.
Time's been looking good.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I won't make any puns based off that because we have Fear Dragon, and he wants to take all the
He'll
puns.
make all of them.
So we'll just give them all to him, and then we'll just watch some nice TvZ. Our 4th map, again, could be the final one. It's going to be on Port Alexander. Will this bracket format just mean whoever was placed, seated in, just continues on and then gets beat by the next person, gets to the next person? Or will we actually have a really cool run through the bracket by this guy in the bottom right? As the red Zerg, he's down 1. It is Cham.
Cham! I like the way you said that.
I can't go Mark Guttural.
Cham!
Cham!
It's not that you can't, it's that maybe you shouldn't. Cham! That'll wake people up. Hey, it's early here. We had our caffeinated beverages, though, so we're awake for you guys. In the top left-hand side, mostly, it's the Blue Terran MaSa. That's what I hear when people
MaSa.
do the, oh, like the, family show, the introductions where they're like, oh, man, the camera's on me. Oh, hey.
What was the Brady Bunch? What was their name?
Jan.
Yeah, it was Jan. There we go.
Jan.
Yeah. Oh, this is a CC first.
Take me
And,
back. That's
yeah.
a Brood War build, bruh. Brit.
All I can remember is that Idra canceled his 14 CC. It was 14 back in Brood War, wasn't it?
Oof. I don't know.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe.
Surprise quiz. Actually, it might not have been because you were on 6 workers. I actually really don't remember.
So full reference for people that don't get it, and a very important online, but still back in the day, this was huge. TSL put on by Team Liquid. Thanks to them, we use their Wikipedia all the time. Idra versus Noni. Noni was doing some probe harass on the CC first. Now, if you click on the SCV and tell it to cancel, it'll just stop building that CC because that's one of the ways Terrans cheat. But if you click on the CC itself and click cancel, you will stop basically the entire purpose of your build. And this is, I believe, to this day, one of the fastest professional Conclusions, I wouldn't say GG because there wasn't any, of course, but fastest conclusions to a game we've ever had.
There was a StarCraft 2 game where someone misplaced a Nexus, I think. I think it was a Protoss player, and they just quit the game.
Oh, wow.
So
Professional match?
I don't know if it was like the finals or something.
Was this like a warty cave, you know, midnight invitational mid-GM?
I think it was like an MLG round of 16. Ooh. So like kind of like, you know, a big deal.
Even that's pretty silly though.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of silly plays in StarCraft.
There has been.
Yeah. Anyway, someone's going to tweet me the exact scenario and how much it was worth.
Well, you're referencing
whatever.
MLG Anaheim 2013.
There's Roddy. Where is he at?
That's the Roddy voice?
No, but being able to pinpoint exactly when a match is.
Yeah.
And tell you exactly what happened, that's a Roddy thing. Anyways, so CC first into the nice wall off. The downside of being Terran, so many upsides. You can put your buildings, they don't have fuel, they don't burn out.
GSL finals every year.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but the one downside is that you do get affected by which side of the map you spawn on. So you look at this, and if Cham wanted to say, you know what, I think you're going to get stim from that barracks, which would be suicide, and you probably should never do that, then I might go ahead and build some roaches and attack it. But that's, yeah, exactly. That would be suicide. So MaSa's not planning on really utilizing those forward 2 production facilities because he has 2 starports. Finally, there's the two starports. Double Banshee. It's what might have been Cham's concern in the first game. So will he be like tricked because he knows that I know that this could have happened, you know, that whole thing, or is he going to be over defensive again, you know, and actually build a bunch of sport crawlers?
I think it's going to be Ravagers, and that's kind of what I look at this wall and say. In this day and age, too, the Ravagers are good, but a Nidus with like 9 queens popping up, even better. And if so much of this production is on the low ground, it basically has to be exactly what you just said, too, right? Like, normally I think Banshees or Starports would really catch you off guard. But right now, the options are getting limited. Lings are going to keep poking at that wall and be like, what does a factory and barracks with no add-ons produce? Like, what does that do? I feel like the build is revealing itself without it being scouted. And even if he doesn't guess starports, you get aggressive against it, I feel.
Well, the trick is, right, even if you do an all-in that has queens included, so whether it's a Nidus Worm or an Overlord drop, both which require Lair, which are both pretty committed at this time, you don't bring the Banshees, you don't defeat the you don't bring the Queens, you don't defeat the Banshees.
Right.
And that's actually an invitation that MaSa is hoping Cham will accept. Please roach attack me, assuming that you can break this, because I won't have a tank on the way, and obviously I don't have a lot of production. Because the Banshees not only, I mean, they might actually come out a little bit slow, even if they're double starports. They pack such a punch. It's actually Lings that get complicated, but even that would probably be holdable. So MaSa might be excited to see that there are roaches moving across the map.
Might be. But there's also a lair, right?
No. Is there? I mean, that would have been really quick. Nope, I didn't think so.
Secret lair? No?
He didn't build that many extra queens, so he really wasn't setting up for this, and I think this is exactly what MaSa was hoping for, and now he reveals, hey, 2 Banshees already. That's a bad sign for Cham, but he's already committed so much to this. You know, he just pumped out 16 Lings amongst all these roaches and Ravagers.
Not again! Listen, you can land 1 skill shot this best of 5. I won't have a Zerg player evolving to such degrees that they're now landing multiple skill shots within the same week of each other. So I don't... We'll have to talk to my Protoss Illuminati brethren.
Did you get to cast much of Legacy of the Void beta?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember when no one could shoot across a bile?
Yes.
Yes, that was grand times. Liberator would be right on top of your mineral line. They'd be like, I don't know.
Where did it go?
So this Banshee opener, I would dare say, has been very effective. You forced an all-in. I wouldn't say forced, but they chose it an all-in, and you just absolutely slapped that away. Cham's now the one that has to think about trickier things to do, and I do like this attempt, but I wonder if it's going to work. Try and get around the Banshees. You know where they are. They're attacking you, so get around them, and then draw them back at the very least, and give yourself some breathing room.
Yeah. The funny thing about, you know, baiting an all-in is sometimes the all-in just still hits anyways. Mm-hmm. And you were walking Marines out on the map, and you don't have a wall
no wall.
in.
There's
and you have no bunker.
That's a no wall.
So the Banshees are going to be, they're like, shh, Banshees, come back home over here. Yeah, what's going on, Captain? The Zerg's here. Get back here now. And it's going to do a lot of damage. That never should have done any damage at all.
Yeah, that is the best way to put it. It's going to do damage when it should not have done any at all. But even, unless he took like literally 20 SVs worth of damage, which he takes 9. He got into the mineral line, he got top of the ramp, only does 9 damage. That's not enough. And you only temporarily brought the Banshees back, but you didn't really get to kill any. I think one went down on the offensive, but that's it. So you still have to worry about, for instance, taking your 4th base. So I do think your options are limited when you've already got such a rough start, and Aspire probably is the best way to go. But as I said in the last game, or game before that, whatever it was, Overseers are outrun by Banshees. So you never really can take them down for good if the Terran's playing right.
Here's the thing, you pick up the spore crawlers, do it. Yeah, look at that one. It never should land, by the way. You can kill it. Yeah, exactly. He's actually coming really late to it. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. Well, he's going for the queens just to...
MaSa takes the weirdest fights, doesn't he? He's like,
well,
he's going to win.
Yeah, it actually is kind of going to that it doesn't matter thing, but I think he also was thinking, I'm going to stop the queens from getting to like the 7 or 8 count. And, well, in this case, he got everything he wanted. Everything. Dreams do come true.
This is, again, going back to the Thanos question. Like, what did it cost? Everything. But in this case, nothing.
Just 9 SCVs.
Like, what did it cost? He's like, nothing, actually. I'm emotionally totally fine about all this.
Yeah. So that's when the Banshees skedaddle, and even if they don't have Cloak available, the Mutas still struggle to keep up. So that's still 3 Banshees. No, he's going to go ahead and kill that one off. So 2 Banshees live. He is already on his way to some Cyclones, and since the Muta count's really not that high, those Cyclones will be fine here. Start a little bit late, but yeah, here come them Cyclones. And I guess he will be going back into the Cyclone battle mech. No Thors here.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's a missile turret. It's not protecting the mineral line. It was trying to do both. Protect the direction and the mineral line, and kind of failed there.
It's fine. And the Banshees are literally so fast, they go across the map, and they're just... I mean...
They're having a good old time. Even if you split up the Mutas, unless you had 20, so it's 10 on each side, like 3 Mutas will not kill that many Banshees that quickly. So they're going to get out and come back later, and so on and so forth. The control is entirely in MaSa's favor, but Cham, maybe if he keeps his head down, maybe if he gets a lucky surround on the Cyclones, like I'm spitballing here because you really are in increasingly worse positions. First you do a Roach All-In that doesn't work, can't work, then you go for Mutas, which have a limited lifespan anyways, if you don't surprise the Terran with them, and then...
They just get locked on and die in the fight, but even the Banshees at this point in time, they're disgusting. What do you bring army comp-wise? I mean, you got to start adding Hydras, but you're on 3 bases. Right now, Cham is being pinched. And MaSa is styling.
Nice.
He's just hiding Widow Mines now, too. I love it. It's just, sometimes you're dead in StarCraft. I think people don't like to necessarily hear that. They're like, no, there's always a chance. Nah, sometimes strategically in just the position of the game gets so far behind that, yes, something super weird could happen, but it just probably won't. MaSa's up 24 supply. Army Comp can straight up rock the socks of Cham. And Cham's got to actually find something new. The Spire didn't work. Where do you go?
And the extra special thing about these Banshees, besides the great amount of damage they've done, the denial of the all-in, is that they also scout where the army is and what it looks like. So you know you can end the game, or you know not to end the game. And in this case,
4 Banshees.
He goes for it. GG!
How many Banshees was that at the end?
7 or 8?
No. There was another 4
Even
that
more?
just joined.
Even more? Wow.
10 so. Anyways, MaSa slams the door on Mr. Cham here, who was able to win that first match, but the next boss was just too much. And again, it's worth noting, oftentimes when we talk about MaSa, the joke is always about, 7 games of all proxy racks, a lot of cheese. Not really this time around. Yes, some like strategic cheese, I guess you can call it that if you really want to find a way to describe cheese, but otherwise just strategic mastery. Well done with great micro.
Yeah. I know Cham's probably kicking himself for kind of falling for that double Banshee thing. That's the worst case scenario for when you do that type of all-in, just entirely hatchery based. But good showing. Got that first game under his belts. Obviously, he's still looking pretty good in that late game macro game, and he took Estrella out pretty convincingly. So we still have our eyes on Cham for future WCSs. I mean, this is only the first stop. Right? Yeah. There's plenty of points to be gained and money to be gained later on, but it's MaSa who at this point is able to get more cash, more points, and I believe we'll be interviewing him in just a couple seconds.
Yes, there's an awful lot of production people circling around. I believe we're going to carry him in on a palanquin. Is that what we're doing? It's going to be... Do we do this live on air, or are you waiting for a break? We don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? Well, we're going to look at the bracket.
And then maybe he just appears.
a bracket break. So this means MaSa is going to go on to face Time in a TvT. We got all the matchups, man. We're going to have TVP and a TvZ and then a free-for-all. Oh, my God. And, yeah. I'm looking forward to this TvT, actually. I think they did play. Well, of course, they played in the round robin. That's how the round robin would work. And it was actually time favored, but you know what? I'm eager to listen to MaSa's thoughts about his past, present, and future matches.
Oh my God! You blame it on Fear Dragon, but then you just did a time joke.
Yeah, but I didn't just do it the lazy like, oh, he's got plenty of time.
Wow, you call Fear Dragon lazy now.
Well,
When does the bullying stop?
when he stops bullying me, honestly.
Fair enough.
Lowering his supply depots and team games and stuff, honestly.
Congratulations.
All right,
Thank
here
you.
we go. Hello.
Hey,
Congratulations.
thank you.
So you will advance on after defeating Cham 3-1. That first game, though, actually looked a little rocky. Can you explain what went wrong there? Because it seemed like you were already thrown off. What was the goal with that tank push, especially, is my question.
I thought he was just droning up way too much, so I had to do something.
Oh, okay.
But I guess that was already too late to do something after
Yeah.
my build.
All right, so it wasn't exactly a pre-planned thing, like this is what I'm going to do in King's Cove. It was like, okay, I got to do something. Nah, it just didn't work out. All right, that explains, all right. So the next few games, you showcased a variety of builds. That last game, though, that went about as perfectly as possible, right? That's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so does that ever not work? Does the Roach Ling-All-In actually ever do anything there?
Actually, this is like, I guess, battle of information.
Okay.
Because I was playing on barcode and I got Cham before.
Oh?
And whenever I do that, people think it's 2-star for BC.
Oh,
So that
really?
Roach Ravager push counters it pretty hard.
Okay, okay.
That's why I made Banshee, which countered his counterplay.
I getcha. I haven't seen the 2BC in a while, but that's actually really cool that it ended up affecting it so drastically.
What about 2 Banshees into BC?
That doesn't sound too great.
Really? Straight BC or straight Banshee for you?
Yeah, because BCs aren't that good after like, let's say 7-minute mark, something like that.
Yeah.
They're pretty good before 7 minutes, though. Yeah.
That's yeah, it's
They're
exactly
not
how
ready
it
for
goes
it.
down.
I like it. Okay. This is setting up the next matchup, of course, which is TvT, and we were just talking about how Time had a very good set against you before in the round of 8, or the round robin. How are you feeling going in your match against Time this time around?
Time is actually the scariest player for me especially because my TvT is really horrible right now.
Is it actually, though? You've been an amazing TvT player in the past. It's
In
horrible?
the past.
Okay.
In
Fair
the
enough.
past, I was amazing. I can say that, but not anymore.
Yeah?
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
It's your worst matchup, you say?
Yeah, and
Is
I
this-
believe it's Time's best matchup.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Is that like, what do you think that is because? Is it because maybe it's going later and later into the late game? It feels like a lot of TvTs lately are going into like 4 or 5 bases, a lot of Vikings, or is it something else? Just
I just feel like there is no meta game in TvT.
don't quite have a handle on it. Yeah,
For you
but
to counter.
Time seems to. I watched those games between you two. I thought like both of you played really well, but Time was just like, not gonna lie, he's next level, so you must be
Yeah,
a
I
little
agree.
nervous. All right, well, it's a best of 5 this time, so I'm gonna wish you the best of luck. I know a lot of people are cheering for that North American hope in the Americas tournament. We're gonna go ahead and just leave you any room to shout out anyone you would like to. Say any last words?
Thank you for cheering me.
Nice.
Thank you for cheering me.
Well done.
The true Maru special right there. Maru Kin, Maru. Okay. All right, guys. Well, good luck, MaSa, in your next match. Guys, we'll be heading off into a break. But coming up next, the continued production, of the King of the Hill format. MaSa vs. Time is coming up next. Don't go anywhere. This is where Liberators do start to shine, not just against Ultras, but in general holding a position. But it looks like Cham's going to try and break it. There are so many Liberators that actually aren't even helping with this fight. They're not being repositioned until the very last second.
He's going to break MaSa and with it take the game. He's going after that 6 o'clock depth. Forget about it.
Is that...
Oh.
Yo, no.
Bro, that is a half-court shot at the buzzer that landed it. Behind us, there's Liberators harassing mineral lines. There's no new bases being taken, so the trading has just finally found its course. Cham is down at 114 supply, not seeming to be able to get any higher. He doesn't have an army to snowball. If he had like 9 Broodlords, okay, yeah, there's something to be done here. Nope.
I actually kind of like how Cham was holding this, but then he did just lose those banelings, which now opens the floodgates. But originally, it seemed like he was trying to wait it out with the stims. Didn't end up working out. The extra special thing about these Banshees, besides the great amount of damage they've done, the denial of y'all in, is that they also scout where the army is and what it looks like. So you know you can end the game, or you know not to end the game. In this case,
There's 4 Banshees.
he goes for it. GG!
How many Banshees was that at the end?
7 or 8.